Welcome to Fated, a podcast brought to you by Majella and Carlie, two romantasy-obsessed readers who believe that great books must include declarations of undying love and deep thrusts of desire. Diving into the spicy, smutty fantasy genre, we are here for both the rattling of stars and headboards, and our podcast starts with the worlds of SJM, but delves into other realms. Did we mention that washboard abs and wands of all kinds are welcome in this inclusive and magically charged space? No topic is off limits, and no one is forced to have only one favourite heroine. Welcome to Fated, where we are unabashedly and wholeheartedly hot and heavy for spicy fantasy fiction. It's time to sit down and smut up. Warning, spoilers ahead. Hi, and welcome to Fated. My name is Majella, and I am doing a solo episode this week because I stumbled upon a series and I started reading it, and I'm on to book 12, and it has been a week, and Carlie is focusing her reading efforts on different books. So she suggested that I jump on and talk about the series because I need to talk about it because it's so good. How did I find it, and who am I talking about? So I don't know if I'm the only person who has never heard of this author and if I am just so behind the times with this, but the author's name is Nalini Singh. She was born in Fiji, raised in New Zealand, and she has written an extraordinary number of books. I think she has published 75 pieces of work. I think at least 35 of those are full-length novels, and they're usually part of different series. So the series that I'm currently reading, called the Guild Hunter series, has 16 books in it. The 16th book is being released this year. How did I not know about this? These books are incredible. So I think if you have also been on a similar trajectory to what happens in the romantasy world, where you begin with ACOTAR and then you move on to Throne of Glass and then you move on to Crescent City. So you sort of work through all of SJM's catalogue. And then, there's some fairly predictable books and authors that we have all landed on. So Carissa Broadbent with the Serpents and the Wings of Night, the Nyaxia series, Powerless, Divine Rivals, One Dark Window, Fourth Wing Iron Flame. We've all gone through these same sort of the next stage of reading. I've seen lots of TikToks recently where it's been phase 1 of romantasy, and that's the SJM world. Phase 2 is like, these books, which are still very easy to read, and the world building is very easy to understand, and it's not heading too far into science fiction or high fantasy, and it's not stepping too far into the dark romance world either. So they're still sitting in this sweet spot where there's this understanding that there will be happy endings in all senses of the word, and you can read this book fairly certain that your heart will survive the story. Because as we step into these worlds filled with immortals, gods and vampires and shapeshifters and werewolves and angels and demons and fairies, and it can get fairly violent and bloody. And many an author has killed off favourite side characters to the distress and devastation of the readers. Anyway, I digress. Back to Nalini. I am 12 books deep into her 16-book series of the Guild Hunter series, and I am obsessed. I am addicted. I am so deep in this world. I don't want to make like a comparison to ACOTAR because it's a different world. It's angels and archangels and immortals, but it's based in the real world of what we know, the countries and the continents. So it starts in New York with an archangel, Raphael, and he is one of the central characters. And so it is different to ACOTAR and Throne of Glass, but a little similar to Crescent City in that it is They have phones and technology, but some of these immortals have been alive for 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 years. So there's this element of magic and power and unpredictability and incredible good looks, which happens with the angels and the vampires. I don't want to do any spoilers in this episode because I think that it is such an underread series and it is underhyped and it is not well known. She is a massive author. This is what she does. She writes books. She's been writing books for a long time. This series was first published many years ago. She has won so many different awards and accolades. It's just incredible. She's worked as a lawyer, a librarian, a candy factory general hand, a bank temp, and an English teacher. So she got a call in September 2002 that Silhouette Desire wanted to buy her first book, Desert Warrior. And she says, I hope to continue living the dream until I keel over of old age on my keyboard. So, I mean, it's sort of secondary about the author in a way. It's interesting to know how she got into writing and how long she's been writing for and her heritage and where she lives and all those kind of things. But none of it would matter if the books themselves weren't so addictive, weren't compelling, weren't interesting. The worlds are very... they feel very simple in a way, so it's very easy to step into them, but they're not simplistic nor one-dimensional. But if you've read Crescent City, there is a common understanding that it can be quite hard to get into that world. There's so many different houses and there's so many different things that connect to each other, and you're going from these realms of Qatar with Valeris and all the courts, and then you go into Throne of Glass where you have Harrison and all the sort of countries there, and then you go into Crescent City where it's like, oh, it's actually back in our world, and this is weird because it's not our world, but it is like our world, with high rises and technology and grown up. But then there's werewolves and shapeshifters and fae and angels. The beauty of these books is that I fell headfirst into this series and I just loved the characters. I loved the initial love story. I'm saying love a lot. Every book has this very strong thread of romance through it. This is definitely a romance first fantasy, or she calls it paranormal, which I guess is because it's fantasy based in the real world, in our world. But it is just, I think it's going to be my series of 2024. And the irony of that is that it has been written and published so long ago. But she is still releasing books within this series. That's what's so cool and kind of crazy. Like I feel like the first book was published in 2012. It's now 2024 and she's publishing book 16. There is love. There is intrigue. There is betrayal. There is archangels fighting amongst themselves. There is protecting of the mortals. There is political intrigue. There is the development of powers. There is the mystery of not knowing. There is this. There is a type of love I think that we all yearn for. That no one else can touch you. You are mine. I will not live if you are not breathing. There is this kind of very deep bonding that happens between the characters that fall in love. And she just writes beautifully. Her prose is poetic at times. She definitely has some incredibly romantic lines that just made me swoon. She writes fight scenes and action scenes so well with life and a knowledge of sword play and weaponry. I step into that world. It's how I felt about ACOTAR. It's how I felt about Harry Potter. I stepped in and I became immersed. I connected to the characters. I connected to the world. I wanted it to be real. I wanted it to be a place I could go to and people that I could actually speak to. And I feel like that is the most indicative sign of an incredible storyteller, is when they create a world that is so compelling and feels so real, regardless of if it has any connection to our own world, though this one does. But I am just blown away by what she has created. I've still got 4 more books to read in this series. I'm trying to ration them out, but I'm failing miserably. I'll probably read them all over the weekend. And then I'll begin her other series, and then expect to just hear me talk about these a lot. I don't know what I'm going to do, because I need to speak about them with specifics, because there are some scenes in the books where it is just like the gasp out loud, the sobbing, it hasn't taken me to that place of desolate heartbreak and devastation that I went to in the Throne of Glass series. Like that Kingdom of Ash, that book destroyed me in the best possible way. But these books are more like ACOTAR in that sense of like, yes, things happen. I cried. I've gasped. I've laughed. I've gotten a little bit hot under the collar. The sex scenes, the spicy scenes that she writes are just, whew, they are good. They are really good. They are primal, and they just feel unfiltered. Like I know that she's writing, but it feels like they're so, like the veil between us, between her words and the world she's created and me, feels so thin. Like I feel like sometimes I stop and I'm confused for a moment that this isn't a place I can go to. That's how well she writes. Anyway, I also don't want to hype it up so much that you go in, which I think is what happens sometimes, is people hype up books and characters so much that you don't get a chance to make up your own mind. I just think that if you enjoyed SJM's worlds and you liked a lot of those sort of romanticities that sit in that same kind of genre, you will really like Nalini Singh. You will really like the way she writes. You will love her characters. You will find it very, very easy to read. And when you have read any of these books, please come and find me so that we can talk about it in great detail, like page by page, line by line, because I'm not sure Carlie's going to I don't think she just doesn't have the capacity right now with everything we've got going on, the books we've got on our TBR list, the podcast, the book club, and then life. If we just had jobs where all we had to do each day was read, we might stand a chance. But currently, we've got to fit it in around everything else that we do. So if you have read any books by Nalini Singh, I would love to hear your thoughts. Please, no spoilers though in this comment section, because this is sort of her introduction, because I don't want to spoil anything, because I'm fairly sure that no one I know has ever read any of her books. I don't see her come up on my TikTok other than this one video that I saw. And I find that so incredible. Like, she has written so many books. She is a full-time author. She has won all these awards and accolades. It's like, I don't know if I've just been in like a tiny little protected TikTok cave, but I am now in her world and I'm loving it. So I would really love to hear from you, and I would really love you to start reading the books if you have any space on your TBR list. So until next time, I think Carlie and I will be back very soon to talk about the books that we are currently reading together. And if you want to join our book club, it's Fate at the Book Club. It's on Fable, the Fable app. Just go to our Instagram or TikTok. You'll find all the details to join, and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for listening. We hope that you felt like you were eavesdropping on a conversation that you have been dying to have with someone, to discuss all the tiny details and possible plot twists of the books that you've recently read. Perhaps you don't have someone to chat to after you finish one of those epic books, so please give the show a follow, and we would be honoured to be your book-obsessed friends. But mostly though, we hope it was fun, it gave you a giggle, it made you gasp, or encouraged you to pick up a different author. please share it with someone who you think would also love it, and drop us a review letting us know what you loved and what you want to hear from us in the future. We will be back with another episode soon. Happy reading.